All right, Steeler fans, welcome. It is time for the winners and losers segment. We do this after every game, no matter what. It was easy the first 3 weeks. Man, 3-0. That's awesome. Let's do it. And then the last 2 weeks have been tough. Now, last week was a game where there are actually a lot more winners than most people probably thought. I don't know if there's going to be as many as maybe people thought this week. I have 3 winners and 10 losers after the 20-17 loss to the Cowboys. Let's get this started with the winners. There's only 3. Some might even debate whether there should be 3. The first is TJ Watt. He finishes with 8 total tackles, 7 solo, 1.5 sacks, a tackle for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. So TJ Watt is dynamic. He's a playmaker. He's a superstar, whatever you want to call him. TJ Watt got to the 100 sack mark at home in front of the Acrisure Stadium crowd. But he's only one guy. And you can see the amount of attention he is getting, rightfully so, from the opposition every single snap. And so when you take a look at what Watt does and how he impacts games, even after all that stuff that the offense is doing to try and negate him, it just makes it that much more impressive. Watt's a winner in every sense of the word. All right, the next winner is Nick Herbig. Now, his stat line seems light. He had 2 tackles, 1 solo, a half sack, and a 1 tackle for loss. Nick Herbig and TJ Watt, when they were playing together against this pass-happy Cowboys team, it was entertaining to watch these 2 guys go to work. Nick Herbig, he can rush the passer. Nick Herbig might not be as good as Alex Highsmith at stopping the run, but Nick Herbig can rush the passer. And he and TJ Watt, they were having several meetings at the quarterback, so to speak, where it just felt like who was going to get there first. And when Herbig left the game with that hamstring injury, everything changed. Everything was thrown off. You had TJ Watt was getting double, sometimes triple team. There was no one opposite that was even threatening to rush the passer. So Nick Herbig played really, really well up until he got hurt. That's why he deserves to be on the winners list, in my opinion. And the last one is the takeaways. The Steelers end up with 3 takeaways in this game. They needed every single one of them to remain in the game because when you look at it statistically, the Dallas Cowboys blew the Steelers' doors off, but it was the takeaways that kept the Steelers in the game. And unfortunately, we'll talk about points off of turnovers here in the other half of this segment. But I think that when you look at this game, they needed 3 takeaways just to remain in it, and even that wasn't enough. And so that speaks a lot about the offensive performance in this contest. So there you have it, the 3 winners, TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, and the takeaways. Okay, let's go to the losers. Let's start off with the defensive secondary. The Steelers surrendered 336 yards through the air, and I already mentioned in the first half of this show that they didn't just give up yards, they gave up chunk plays. Jalen Tolbert, 48-yard long. Jake Ferguson, 27 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 27-yard long. Kevontae Turpin, 34-yard long. Rico DeWiddle, I think I said that correctly, 22-yard long. These plays gashed the Steelers defense. They gashed them in every sense of the word. And so the Steelers secondary, I talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick and his comments after the game as it pertains to the secondary and the issues that are going on. He said they're easy fixes. They need to fix that really quick. And I don't know if it's, okay, we need to replace Beanie Bishop with someone. I don't know if it's that or if it's, a myriad of other issues. But I will say, like, if you're thinking Corey Trice is going to be that guy that comes in and saves the day, he's not even eligible to return off IR yet. So who knows what's going to happen there. But the defensive secondary was bad. They were letting free receivers just run throughout the secondary. Bad look. All right, the next are penalties. Now, from a total standpoint, they were penalized 8 times for 50 yards. The Cowboys were penalized more than that. But again, it's the pre-snap penalties, those little calls that continue to plague this team. Clean it up. I understand that Mike Tomlin, penalties are going to happen. They're always going to happen. And I think they're trending in the right direction. But flagged 8 times for 50 yards, that's not a winning performance any day of the week. The next one, the next loser, and you're probably waiting for me to say Justin Fields is a loser, or George Pickens is a loser, or Najee Harris is a loser. I have the entire offense on the loser list. And how do you do that? It's simple. They're all on the loser list. It's inconsistency all around. That's the stat line. You look at the offensive line, and I know it's their first time playing together. Isaac Seumalo's first game back. The Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is going to have to gel. Justin Fields was just okay in this game, and that might be generous. And so Justin Fields didn't play up to par. You look at all the other players that surround him, they didn't really play up to par. Drops by the receivers. Connor Hayward dropped two big passes, actually. And yeah, I know he caught a touchdown, but he had two big drops in this game. You look at the lack of separation they were getting and the usage of those players. And Najee Harris does look really slow to the hole, and they don't have any explosive players in that backfield now. It's inconsistent. All of them are inconsistent. This entire offense just looks inept at times. That's what needs to be ironed out. They have no identity. Even though Justin Fields tried to answer that question in the postgame show, they have no identity. They're not a running team. They're not a quick passing team. They're not a down the field strike team. They have no identity, and we are heading into week 6, and that's a problem. Let's go to the next loser, the coaching staff. For the second straight week, the Pittsburgh Steelers played a team that statistically didn't deserve to even be on the same field, and especially with the defense. Not only that, for the second straight week, the Steelers have been outworked by an undermanned team. The Dallas Cowboys were without Micah Parsons, without Lawrence. They were without a lot of offensive linemen. They were dropping like flies on Sunday night. And yet the Steelers couldn't do anything. For the second straight week, that opponent's defense has a glaring issue, and the Steelers cannot take advantage of that issue. They have been outcoached the last 2 weeks. It's been crazy. It's up and down the field. It's so blatantly obvious when you are watching these games. You're thinking the Dallas Cowboys are without how many guys, and they do what? I mean, this is a Dallas Cowboys offense that couldn't run the ball to save their life, and they rushed for 109 yards. That's over 30 yards more than their average so far this season. The Steelers coaching staff right now is getting worked. They are getting worked. These plans suck. They're not coming out of the gates fast, especially on offense. They're getting worked. They're on the the whole coaching staff is on the losers list. The next are injuries. They just continue to add up. I mentioned this in the first half of the show. Nick Herbig with a hamstring, DeMarvin Leal with the stinger were the only two players that were talked about after the game, and they both left the game with those injuries. That's just more and more injuries to deal with. It's just running back and outside linebacker are getting absolutely abused in terms of the injury situation. But let's move on. The next loser is POT, or POT, as I like to call it, points off turnovers. So points off of turnovers. The Steelers get 3 turnovers in this game, and they only turn 1 into points. Now, Dante Jackson's interception towards the end of the half, if he would have stayed in the end zone, which is a tough play, he's cutting off the corner. He ends up running out of the end zone. They start that drive at the 1 or 2 yard line. That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to try and dig your way out of your own end. You took points off the board, you take it. But then you talk about like the missed field goal or the block field goal. There were a lot of takeaways, and the only one they got points off of was Joey Porter Jr.'s interception in the fourth quarter, turned it into the Pat Freiermuth touchdown, and gave the team the lead. The Steelers' offense has to do their part. If the defense is going to get them the ball back, if they're going to keep the opposition off the scoreboard, they have to do their part. The offense has to be better. Okay, let's go to the next one. Defensive adjustments. This is one of those, again, kind of going back to the coaching aspect on the losers list. We kind of all said, like, man, the second half adjustments are fantastic. Man, like, this is great. Where are the defensive adjustments is what I want to know. Where are the times where, okay, you got gashed in the first half with this play. We need to make an adjustment so that play doesn't happen again. And they consistently got gashed against the Cowboys. It was this ongoing thing. excuse me, an ongoing thing about where were they going to strike next? The Cowboys, that is. Where were they going to find the soft spot in the zone? Where were they going to just thread the needle down the middle? And kudos to them. Kudos to Dak Prescott and his receiving crew. They are a good unit, very deep, deeper than the Steelers from an offensive perspective. But it just felt like the whole time, the second half, you're waiting for some type of adjustment. And again, the coaching staff might say, well, what adjustments are we going to make? You're down to only two outside linebackers. Beanie Bishop is your best slot cornerback at the time. What are you supposed to do? And maybe that's the case. I don't know. But it was bad enough to find their way on the losers list. All right, the next loser, we have 3 left. Bear with me here. The third down offense. They find themselves on the loser list. And there's times where Dave Schofield has said, hey, if they don't get to 50%, don't put them on the losers list. And I don't do that anymore. But 3 for 12 on third down. That was the Steelers' offense on third down offensively. That's not a winning performance. And you can say, well, Jeff, they did have fourth down conversions, which they did. They did have fourth down conversions. They were able to move the ball. They were 2 for 2 on fourth downs. But I'm sorry, third downs have to be better. They're called money downs for a reason. That's where you make your living. The Steelers were over 40%, but not anymore. For a season, 3 for 12. And people might say, well, what's the problem? What's the problem? At this stage, a third down offense, I don't know. They can't do short yardage. They're not able to get chunk plays. It's a bad spot to be in for an offense in the NFL. The next is the third down defense. Let's just flip the script. Third down defense, the Dallas Cowboys finished 9 for 15. 9 for 15 on third downs. Well over 50%. And this is something that I actually talked about on last week's What Let's Ride podcast, that they are a very good third down offense. They struggle in the red zone, and they did again against the Steelers, but they are a very good third down offense. And so I look at this, I'm like, man, 9 for 15, just get off the field. In terms of money downs, third down offense, third down defense on Sunday night, they sucked. It was bad. Both sides of the coin were awful. And let's finish this up with the weather delay. There's no one to blame. I'm not blaming the NFL or anything like that, but man, a 9:45 kickoff was brutal. It was brutal for the fans in attendance. Our Brian Davis was there. It was brutal for us watching, I had people chiming in from Germany this morning on Twitter saying that they were up early to watch the game, and they watched it all the way up until getting their kids ready for school. Like, just crazy. Crazy. The weather delay also probably impacted the players. Both sides for sure, but it probably impacted everything. I hated that delay, and it's the second time. Last year was the Arizona game that got delayed all this time. I think Dave Schofield was at that game. Just awful. Just awful. This is a game. There's always games like this where you're going to look back at losses and say, man, what if? Last season it was the 3-game stretch of losses to the Colts, Patriots, and Cardinals. And now it's the loss to the Colts, loss to the Cowboys at home, had a lead, let it go. These are games that Steelers typically find a way to win. They weren't able to do that. We'll see if they can rebound next week in Vegas against the Raiders. But that does it for me. It's been a long night. It's been a long morning. Plenty of more work left to be done. Make sure you check out all of Steel Curtain Network's podcasts. There's not going to be a Here We Go show today at 11. That's going to be tomorrow morning instead of Bad Language. So make sure you adjust your dials accordingly. Go back and check out the postgame show and the Mike Tomlin postgame press conference recap if you missed it. And again, make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. I asked that everyone give it a shot. I think you're going to like the content we have there, SteelCurtainNetwork.com. But that does it for me. You know how we finish out all my solo shows. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go Steelers.